they'll jump in.
Okay, you recording this so that it goes out, right?
I am recording it, yes.
Okay, I'm just going to sit like that so that light behind me is out of the way. Okay.
Okay, so welcome everyone. Who's here? All four of us.
Yay!
Yeah, there's five of us, plus Lamb Chop.
Hey, Lamb Chop.
Yeah. This is an info session for Jambo and Brian's Yoga Bodyworkers training that is happening. Hi, kitty cat.
Hi!
In Asheville, North Carolina with the little volcano.
Mm-hmm.
From April 26th to May 6th. It's a 10-day training. It's 100 hours. And we're super excited about it. So we're going to ask some questions about the training. And hopefully we will ask all the questions you need answers to. Yeah. So, Jambo! Good morning.
Hey.
Good afternoon to you.
Morning, afternoon, volcanoes.
Question number one.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about the training. What was the inspiration for it? And what are the main goals of the training?
What were the main goals of the training? Was that the second piece? Okay. So earlier on this year, Brian and I were teaching at the Forest Yoga Festival in Kripalu. And Brian and I co-taught a piece on anatomy and body work. And at the end of that workshop, we were like, dude, I didn't know you could do that. You know, it was, it was like high five. I did not know you could do that. So it was kind of like one of those moments. And what Brian taught was the anatomy of the neck and how to work on the scalenes, because, you know, in forest yoga, there's a lot of relaxing the neck. Mm-hmm. And he explained a lot about appropriate touch and what relaxing this area of the body can do for our whole body, our practice and our lives. And then I decided to complement that by teaching about serratus anterior, which is one of the armpit muscles that we activate in forest yoga when we wrap the shoulders. And the reason why I decided to do that was because the next day we were teaching, actually Kelly and I were, it was Brian, Allison and I were co-teaching a workshop on an introduction to gravity surfing. And actually the anatomy of arm balancing and inversion requires you to have a relaxed neck and a turned on armpit muscle. So it just made sense at the time to have these areas of our anatomy addressed. And what we felt was that by the end of the gravity surf workshop, all the students were like, whoa, this makes sense to us now. So from that, we decided, okay, what we need to do is teach a 10-day training in bodywork and anatomy where we can teach graduates or people who want to understand functional anatomy better, why we sequence poses in forest yoga in this way. So it's really about how can we bring our knowledge of understanding functional movement, mobility, and give reasons as to why forest yoga works the way that it does. And in the way that we do bodywork one-on-one sessions, it's very much like how you would apply poses within a forest yoga sequence, if that makes sense. The same level of intelligence comes in. Cool. So that's why we decided to do it. And what you'll expect to learn are the structural muscles. Now, this is my take on the structural muscles. And I just want to say right now that there are many different ways of looking at anatomy as there are anatomists. The human body is a really incredible, unique and miraculous system. And I feel that when you get Brian's interpretation, it becomes much more interesting to hear as many as possible. Yeah. So the way that I see structural muscles that we work in forest yoga are these muscles that hold the skeleton in place. Aside from that, they also are designed to absorb shock because these muscles really want to prevent shock getting to the spine. And we get shock from just living, like running, walking, jumping out of handstands and, all that kind of stuff. Or even absorbing shock from external stimuli from how we experience the outside world in our day-to-day living. So these muscles are designed to hold the skeleton in place. And when they're holding the skeleton in the correct position, as far as I'm concerned, there is efficient breathing. Mm-hmm. When we are breathing more efficiently, then we are all likely to be living from our parasympathetic nervous state, which is our relax and digest state. And in that state, we have fully functional immune system. We are more resilient. We are kinder, we are more compassionate to ourselves. So an example I'm going to give you is chest opener on the wall, a pose that we all love to do in forest yoga. And although it feels like you're getting a stretch in the top of the chest bit here, actually what you're getting into is a muscle called pec minor. Now, pec minor is a structural muscle because it's partly a chest muscle and it's partly a shoulder muscle. It goes from the rib cage all the way through the shoulder and into the shoulder blade. So one of the movements when we do chest open on the wall, inhale into the chest, exhale, pull the shoulder blade down the back, and you get that super amazing stretch in the chest. So it's really, the course is really about explaining why we do these poses, and also giving the trainees an opportunity to get their hands in. And when you're getting your hands in to deepen the experience of the pose, you're also learning a multitude of brand new hands-on assists. And then you apply those hands-on assists to how you also do body work.
Yay!
Yay! Mm-hmm.
So if anyone came to your workshop in Washington, D.C., can they expect some of the similar stuff we learned there, only just more in depth?
Definitely more in depth. I mean, at Washington, D.C., I do recall talking about the scalenes in the neck. Mm-hmm. And I also do recall talking about serratus anterior, but because, that's right, because we just did a handstand workshop before you guys arrived, right? Yeah. Okay. So that's why that piece of anatomy was added into that day. Mm-hmm. There are 12 to 14 muscles that we will cover, hopefully all 14 of them. Well, I really would like all 14 of them covered. And not all of them will require a whole day. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine that if we are talking about one muscle in a day or 3/4 of a day, that's a lot of extra information.
Yeah.
And yeah. Mm-hmm. And so you will definitely expect to hear about the neck. No matter what anatomy workshop Brian or I teach, we will all hear about the neck just as much as any participant that attends a forest yoga class will always hear about a relaxed neck. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you're teaching exhale, relax the neck, and then you give a cue about how wonderful that feels in the neck, expect the information that we share around the anatomy of the neck to be updated all the time.
Nice.
Because it's such an amazing group of muscles. Yeah. Like, for example, right now, what I want to share is that one of the reasons why I always work on the neck first, and I'll let Brian often talks about, he works on the neck first when he's doing body work because he wants to get people into that zone of allowing to be touched, right? And in forest yoga, we get into the neck first for many reasons. And the reason why I get into the neck first is because I feel that it helps people begin to breathe deeply. And I want them to begin breathing deeply right from the beginning of the session. Now, Brian and I have very much walked away from looking at the human body as one muscle at a time. And we're looking at how the human body works as a system of, or a kinetic chain of muscles at the same time. So for example, when you raise your arm, mm-hmm. people used to think, oh, well, that's just your anterior deltoid that's doing that. But actually, it's a whole load. It's like about 7 different muscles that come into play when you're raising your arm up. And your neck muscles, the scalene muscles, they're actually synergists. So they work on many of these connective chains within the body. Well, actually, they work on several connective chains of the body. So I feel that when we work on these scalene muscles first, then whatever other muscle we decide to work on will be easier to get into and easier to get moving again. Mm-hmm. So that's an example of, there'll always be more information of what goes on in our anatomy workshops.
That sounds amazing. I know when Ellen Heed was talking about anatomy during our anatomy class for forest yoga teacher training, she brings up Gil Headley, and all his anatomy stuff reminds me a little bit of how you approach anatomy too. Just talking about how the muscles aren't individually operating machines. They work together. All of them do. And when he does his cadaver labs, you can watch some of them online. Mm-hmm. He's dissecting these bodies, and the muscles they look like they're all one muscle, and they're only arbitrarily named and separated for the sake of science, but really, it's just so interesting. So
so we both have different approaches. Mine is very much about testing individual muscles. Mm-hmm. And then, so for example, within this line, let's say someone raises their arm and it hurts. So when they inhale and reach the arms up in a sun salutation, it hurts. I will test all of the muscles that make your arm raise up, and one or a couple of them will be out. And then we will correct them that way. Brian's approach is a concept called transegrity, which is, I mean, I feel that I should really let him explain it, but it's like these spiral lines of interconnected fascia. And the way that you work on this pattern of movement, I feel as though I can't give it true justice by explaining it, but I've watched him sort out someone's lower back by kind of doing that to their ankle.
Wow.
Let's say that, you know, and then it's kind of like this, it's kind of like reshuffling the fascia or something, you know, like throughout the entire line of it. So everyone will get two approaches to come in to do
really
the work.
Cool.
You will all receive a disk drive, so a memory stick.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so there's no handouts. We're kind of being eco about this. So we'll be doing presentations on some sort of projector or something like that, but you will all get, and you know, the main time that we will spend together will all be about getting your hands on and learning how to develop your intuition through the way that we teach you how to see, sense, and feel. And when I say sense, it's tapping into how you choose to sense things and working with you to enhance that of your own personal ability of sensing energy. And then the disk drive is designed so that that's your memory bank. And, you know, like whatever you need to revise, you can just stick into your computer and there it is.
That's great.
Yeah. So instead of spending all of our time together memorizing names, we would rather spend our time together refining our individual technique.
Yeah. That's awesome. So for those who don't know you very well or haven't had a chance to work with you yet, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself? What's your anatomy background and how long have you been a forest yoga guardian, that kind of thing?
Okay, sure. My degree was in complementary medicine. And I don't know how it is in the rest of the world, but basically, a long time ago, everything that we do is under the banner called alternative medicine. And then various governments around the world recognized that people were spending a lot of money on these alternative systems of medicine. So they decided to do something about it to kind of safeguard us. And then also scientists and researchers decided that they were very interested in the population's general interest in alternative medicine. So people started to research more. Complementary medicine is the umbrella of therapies that we can prove have an effective result. So for example, yoga has been known to reduce high blood pressure. So then yoga becomes a complementary therapy. Remedial massage has been known to reduce lower back pain. So that also becomes a complementary therapy. Whereas things like crystal therapy is still under the banner of alternative medicine, alternative therapy. And it's not because anyone is better than the other. It's just deciding where in the world do these things sit. So my degree was very much about looking at what was complementary and what was alternative. The first 2 years of that, I studied different systems of bodywork, particularly Ayurvedic medicine and then traditional Chinese medicine bodywork systems. And the final year was looking at different systems of medicine and comparing them towards each other. So that went from doctors, mental health nurses, all the way to the stuff that we do. The degree was really designed so that we would then go off and decide which area we want to branch off in. And because my background is in classical Chinese medicine from my heritage, I decided to venture off into Ayurvedic medicine because it was something that wasn't within my remit. I spent a couple of years studying Ayurvedic medicine, and my background, whilst I was doing this degree, was in addiction and substance misuse. So actually my dissertation was in using a system of acupuncture called auricular acupuncture for the treatment of cocaine addiction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is where the beginning of my career was. So I was using Ayurvedic therapies to help addicts. And after a little while, I decided, actually, this is really messy. You know, Ayurvedic therapy requires gallons of oil, and I was spending as much time with a mop as I was with my hands on people.
Wow.
And yeah, so I was like, I'm done cleaning up. And so I decided to look at something else. And at the time, acupuncture was really in the forefront of looking at substance misuse and mental health. So I decided then to go deeper into classical East Asian medicine. And then after a few years of doing that, I decided that what my favorite aspect of all this stuff was the diagnostics. So pulse taking, eyes, questioning, and all that kind of stuff. And I would spend about 40 minutes doing the diagnostics and maybe 20 to 30 minutes doing the actual treatment. So I decided actually what I really want to specialize in is diagnostic techniques. So then from that, I studied various different systems of kinesiology. Originally, the grandfather of kinesiology is a system called applied kinesiology, and that was developed, I think, in the 50s or 60s, so fairly new. But one of the biggest failings of applied kinesiology is that it's kept within this private college, the International College of Applied Kinesiologists. And unless you have some sort of medical degree, they're not really interested in you.
Wow.
And also they've kept a lot of their research private. So then what happened from that was a bunch of kinesiologists decided that you could test for food. So because these people were much more medical based or chiropractic based as well, they were like, no, you can't. So they branched off and created a system of kinesiology called classical kinesiology. And then another bunch of people came along and said, you can test emotions and how people's spirits are. And of course, these classical kinesiologists said, no, you can't do that. So they branched off and created something called health kinesiology, which is the most mainstream one now. And in my opinion, the way that they've gone from testing muscles to testing all sorts of stuff. And so my background is very close to the functional side. Like, how do you test these muscles? And in recent years, people have even branched off and created schools called muscle activation technique and all that kind of stuff. So you guys will be seeing a combination of all of that stuff, but really purely from a musculoskeletal structural approach. Yeah.
Cool.
As far as forest yoga, I've been practicing forest yoga for maybe about 8 years, and I did my teacher training about 6 years ago, and I've only been a guardian for almost 2 years.
Great. All right, let's see, what else? Is there anything else you could tell us about Brian? I know he's not here, but is there anything else you can tell us about him do you think is pertinent to the training?
Sure. I mean, Brian's greatest skill is like he's a kinesthetic magician. Like, yeah, he feels people in a way that I've never come across before.
Cool.
Yeah, and when I'm working with people, often there's dialogue, because if I feel that I need people to release a muscle in a certain way, or they need to go deeper into a particular emotion, then there's dialogue about it. But Brian does it totally, well, not totally, but more non-verbally than I do. And when I watch him work, it's like he can really feel the complex webbing that makes an individual up.
Cool. I'm excited. Brian was our assistant in our foundation training, but he was sick.
Ah, you guys did that training. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't get to know him that well because he was dying.
He was dying, right? Like he had like some really crazy desert virus stuff, and you know, like his learning through that experience is also a story that he would love to share himself.
Yeah.
But I also feel that particular story is also another example of how he really could go inside his own body and feel his way out of the situation.
Yeah. That's cool. So let's talk a little bit about the details of the training. Like, how many hours of contact training, and will the CEUs count towards Yoga Alliance and NCB?
Okay. So your contact hours are something like a couple of hours in the morning for a morning intensive, a break, and something like 5 hours in the afternoon when you're doing body work on each other. As far as I know, in the UK, if the people who deliver the training are 500-hour plus, which we both are, then any workshops that you do with us contribute towards CEU for Yoga Alliance.
Okay.
I feel that's the same setup in the US, because when you guys attend workshops over there, you can just sign off to say you've attended a workshop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other organization, so it's a really interesting one, this bodywork one, and I want to be as transparent as possible. So the way that they work is like this. They say to you, you deliver a training, and then you certify everyone, and then you send the register in, and once you've delivered your first course, then we make your course official. So it's kind of not how it's done over here in the UK, where you have to have it registered first.
Yeah.
It's kind of the other way around. And I don't know why, but Brian talks about this particular organization to be one of the main schools for bodywork.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is why we're going with it.
Yeah.
So basically, at the end of this training, you will all be qualified bodyworkers.
That's great. So it looks like we only have 9 minutes left on the meeting. I think maybe I got started a little bit early by accident. I'm not sure, because I feel like we should have more time. But let's unmute everyone and just open it up for some questions. Okay, so everybody, you are unmuted right now. So who would like to ask a question?
So I'm actually already, and Rosie, I think you are too, a licensed massage therapist, right? So I think this is good for continuing ed, right? Like, I already emailed you about it, but I just want to make sure, because this is like a year where we have to send in renewal, and we need like 20. It's way more than we would need. Like, we need like 24 units.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Like, this would cover that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. And I can check in with the NCB to make sure that is happening. But from what Jambo just said, I believe that is how it's going to work. So.
Yeah, I find it all very confusing too. Jambo and I live here, so.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's okay, Molly. It's a really interesting one when it comes to the CEUs and how to get a course accredited, because each country seems to have its own story. And I sit on the board for Yoga Alliance UK as their consultant in yoga therapy, and I'm it's totally different over here. And also, I am part of another organization called Yoga Therapies Association, which is an organization which is a yoga board that solely focuses on yoga therapies, and they consulted in me a lot to find out how they should set things up, and I try to make things as simple as possible. But yeah, it's really weird. But what I can say to you is that out of the two organizations that I'm a part of, you would do this course and that would complete your required hours for the entire year.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And another question is, so it's 10 days, but I think the span of time is 11 days, like the 26th through the 6th or something like that. So what day does it actually start? I'm just, in terms of looking, do you know what I mean? I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that's actually 11 days. So is it a half day on the end or something like that? Or
I don't know, and I can't open my thing at the moment, but it begins on the 26th.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
it does begin. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's easy to answer over email, but there's also a follow-up part, like phone calls and stuff, right?
Yeah. So that's Brian's piece, really, and really. So this is the other thing, that we don't want to just leave people, after the training without anywhere to go. And I'm going to leave him to describe how that piece is going to go, but there's going to be some sort of post-course support for sure. And there's lots of reasons for that, Molly. And, one of them is that I appreciate that when people come and do a course and they're fully immersed in it, it's really easy to forget certain things. And the other thing is that the way I am now in my personal practice as a teacher is I would rather people left knowing, totally confident knowing, rather than thinking maybe, could be, if, that kind of thing. And, the other thing is that wherever you are in the world, if people contact me, and people contact me all the time and say things like, will you please come over here and teach a workshop on the neck, or like, have you got, my back hurts or whatever, I want to be able to say, I definitely want you to go and see Molly. And, like for a lot of training courses that I've been on, I haven't really been able to say that, because I've just been a guest teacher or something like that. So I don't really know how the rest of the setup is. But I really want to make this course one of those courses where I can say, I definitely trust Molly. Go see Molly.
That's great. So everyone, you are on mute. You can unmute yourselves if you'd like to ask a question. We've got about 4 minutes left.
I'm wondering, is there like a cap for the number of people that'll be in the course, or like, I don't know, like the space obviously would be a piece of that. So just curious.
I feel that we haven't really discussed a cap. We've only discussed a minimum, to be honest with you. Yeah. And that's the honest truth. But I mean, the more the merrier, but not a number where it's like ridiculously uncomfortable to fit in the room, for sure.
Yes.
And like, we want it to be a really beautiful experience for everybody. And when you're learning how to do body work, particularly in the way that Brian and I like to teach it, it has to be a safe environment. So, like, there has to be enough room so that people feel comfortable enough to process and release.
So I'll check on that. Oh. Sorry, go ahead, Molly. Molly?
Okay, I couldn't unmute for some reason. What is the minimum? Because I know this is the first time you're doing this, right? So I would, like, I'm sure it's like, okay, how many people are going to sign up for this, and you have to make it worth your while. So I'm just curious about that.
So originally we said 30 people.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, you need, like, everybody will be paired up, right, for the training, for the whole training. And 15 pairs feels like a really good number to us.
Yeah. And so I just want to speak quickly about the space that we found. Some of you may have seen pictures of it on the Facebook page. It is in West Asheville. It's beautiful. It's gigantic. There's a lot of furniture. There's a lot of little, like, cozy nooks. But there's also a lot of floor space. So there's plenty of room for yoga. There's a lot of wall space. There's a beautiful stage, Jambo, if you and Brian want to teach from there. Yeah, it's a little platform, but with beautiful lights over it. And there's a kitchen as well. It's not a full kitchen, but there's a fridge, there's a sink. We'll have access to all that stuff. We'll have hot plates and things like that too.
Wow.
We have less than a minute left on the meeting here. So is there anything anyone else would like to say? Or
I would like to add something. I would like to add something because Amber did ask me a question a few days ago, and I feel that it's probably good that the whole public get to hear this too. Mm-hmm. In that you don't need to be a qualified yoga teacher or a body worker to come and do this course. And in fact, I'm going to add another piece of that. A lot of people say, is there any reading that you want us to do? The answer is no.
Yeah.
Like, come totally fresh. And I hope that the information that we share is straightforward enough so that you can begin building on top of that. And I feel that if I say, this is one muscle, these are the 5 main things that you need to remember about it. And I can then share the way that I learned about anatomy too.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jambo. And thank you everybody who joined in the call today. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.